thought we could sit for this bit.
I am getting older, so I appreciate that.
Yeah. No, don't worry about it. Nigel, firstly, thank you so much for being here today. Let's start, unfortunately, with last season. I mean, I say unfortunately for you, as an ex-player and as a fan of the club. How was it watching us go through that journey?
Well, first of all, I've got to say it was an amazing season. I think the expectation from the start of last season to where we got from the World Cup break and then going through the World Cup break, so deep into the season, top of the league, and it started to rise and rise. And just unfortunately, at the end, people have said to me, what do you think the reason was? And I think it wasn't just one reason. I think there was maybe 2 or 3 factors that just enabled right at the end Manchester City to come back and pip us to the title. But I have to say, since I've been coming to this stadium, 2006, it's the atmosphere inside this stadium was absolutely electric. It is the first time.
Yeah.
It's the first time since I've been in this stadium that I make sure every home game, 5 minutes before kickoff, I'm out in the stand. And that is due to all you guys and ladies here. Absolutely amazing. And on top of that, I think we're getting a team to be proud of.
I really do. I can only echo what you said there. I think looking at last season, you're a player that's, you've been in that dressing room. You know what, title races are like. You understand, that final run-in. How important is it? You hear so many people say, Man City, they knew how to win the title. They knew that towards the end of the season, they're going to be coming up against, players that are fighting for contracts, fighting relegation. What will the lads take into this season from those last few games, do you think? How much of a difference does it make being experienced in a title race?
Well, hopefully they put themselves there again next season. And for me, what I would do is take in the disappointment of what happened. And I think particularly the 2 games that I always look back to, West Ham and Southampton. For me, that's where the initiative went to Manchester City. You suck that in, you draw on it. When you have those difficult games come the end of the season, you then can turn those games into a victory. And hopefully then, with your teammates, that will take you on to a league title.
Did you have to have someone during your playing career, did you have someone that everyone looked to for a reminder of those moments of like, look lads, look, do you remember here, let's change that?
No, I don't think so, because I think we were a new, if you like, we were a new squad, and this is why I'm a little bit excited with what Mikel Arteta is trying to do. I see very, very similarities to George Graham. In fact, when George came in, he got rid of a lot of the senior players. He brought in players that maybe some of the supporters were looking at and thinking, who's he bringing in? Me being one of them, coming in from Wimbledon, Lee Dixon, Steve Bold. But what George did is tactically, he knew a style that he wanted to play, didn't feel that maybe some of the senior players would play that way, and moulded the team to what he wanted. I think with Mikel Arteta, I said it was a massive job when he came to this football club. I felt there were too many players that were on big contracts. They were comfortable. They needed to be pushed more. And if they weren't pushed and weren't willing to do that, then they needed to be moved on, and then different players brought in. And I think we're seeing that now with Mikel Arteta. And then what we've got this season is the likes, of Declan Rice, Timber coming in, and Havertz. And we're just hoping that those guys can then just take us to that next level again.
Of course, and let's you touched on it there. Let's talk about the transfer business. How important do you think it is? I mean, as someone that's kind of seen Arsenal through the years, do you think it's important to get business done early? As a player, do you want a full pre-season with your club?
Oh, absolutely, because and particularly if you're just looking at Declan Rice, £100 million. And now everybody is judging Declan Rice on £100 million. They're not judging what he did at West Ham. So you want him into the club very, very quickly. You know, he's got to integrate with new players. He's got to integrate with different training. He's got to integrate with a different style of play. So you want as much time as possible before you go into the first game of the season. And I always say it every single season when we talk about players coming to Arsenal Football Club, you know, oh, what do you think of this guy? I'm not interested what he did at his previous club. I'm only interested what he does for my club, and that will be the important fact.
Yeah, 100%. And we saw players, you know, it seems like this is a team that players want to play for. You know, he's turning down the likes of Man City. You know, you've got people moving across, like, you know, obviously Havertz coming from Chelsea to Arsenal. Is there that real sense, do you think, like, that players maybe now are looking at everyone else going, no, I want to be here? And what do you think it is about here that they want to be a part of?
Well, first, it's the club. It's an unbelievable football club. When I walked in through the door and I came on my own to meet George Graham, and when you walk into, I know it's a different stadium, but those marble halls, I knew I was signing within 10 seconds. And then when you play for this club, you know, it stays with you forever. You don't get away because it's got a welcoming. It's a fantastic football club to play for. It's got a history as well. Hence why, you know, since I've retired, I've been coming back here and working here since this stadium was opened in 2006.
And I guess, you know, being a part of something so special, obviously it means so much to you, but obviously since you retired and looking back on your playing days, we were looking through pre-season, obviously it's, you know, come to an end now, we start the season on Saturday. How much does the modern day pre-season differ from the pre-season that you lads must have had?
Well, there's certainly less drinking.
Yeah.
No, but if you think about the pre-season that we would have, you know, even George Graham, even Arsene Wenger when he came in, Boreham Wood, Barnet would be your first couple of games. Then you'd probably play a third division team. Then you might play, a couple of other games, championship team. And if you were in the Community Shield, that would be the first time that you would potentially play the Premier League winners, or the team that had won the FA Cup. You would never go to America. You'd never go to Hong Kong. You wouldn't really be playing Barcelona, Real Madrid, Manchester United. You know, you wouldn't be playing these teams and putting, I don't know it's pressure, but like high-level games so quickly into your pre-season workout. So it's a completely different game now to simply when we were, you know, in pre-season what we were doing.
Yeah, and I heard recently, I heard a couple of ex-pros talking about it and saying about, you know, pre-season matches being something that, you know, they don't even remember who they played in pre-season. You know, and the results didn't necessarily matter to them. They're looking inward at their own performance. How would you say, you know, even in those games you're saying you're playing League Two sides, Championship sides, are you thinking, oh, we need to get a win here, or is it a personal thing for a player?
I think you need to build fitness. You want to try and also build confidence as well. But I was at Wembley, you know, at the weekend, and I was going around the lounges talking to a lot of supporters, and they were asking me about the Community Shield. And I know it's a little bit of devil's advocate, and it was like, would you take Community Shield today or 3 points next Saturday? Well, absolutely. I take 3 points next Saturday because I think the importance of winning your first game is going to be so significant for Arsenal this season because the expectation has risen. So we've got the Community Shield, and I know a lot of people are happy with that because that is now a major trophy, isn't it?
It is indeed. It is indeed.
And then obviously, hopefully, we can start with a win at home and 3 points. So if you're asking me about, do I remember any pre-season games I played in? No, I don't.
Hey, well, look, speaking about trophies as well, there's a statue of a man outside holding the Premier League trophy. Arsene Wenger, we have to talk about him, right? I mean, that statue that is there. I mean, what does Arsene represent for you in terms of Arsenal Football Club?
An amazing manager. First of all, a gentleman. Never ever raised his voice at a player. Respected everybody. I think not only the players, but everybody that worked at the club. I think he would have known everybody's name. And for me, significantly, it was disappointing that he wouldn't come back to the stadium. He's now rightly come back. But the players in his first period that he brought to this football club, boy, oh boy, those names just roll off the tongue. You know, it was an honour to play with some of those guys. But even when I retired and said to you, and come back and watch them, it was an incredible team to be watching as well. I mean, I am so pleased that he's now been given the credit that he deserves in terms of the statue and the welcome back to the football club. I know towards the end there was a lot of debate, but I think, you know, particularly in his early part, the things that he brought to this football club, he was so far ahead of every other manager in terms of his diet, the way that you trained. He was just a sensational manager.
Yeah. How do you think a person like Arsenal, because a person like Arsene, who I think, you know, does kind of represent the club's values so well, how do you think a manager like that is able to walk into a dressing room, as you say, not raise a voice, but gain the respect of all the players that are there? Some players that, you know, preceded him at the club.
Yeah, I think, you know, well, for me, and I've always said it, people talk about the culture at the football club before he came, what he stopped, you know, the dietary requirements that I've talked to you about but for me it was just his training methods. I trained with Arsene Wenger twice, and it was just like, this is just something you want to be part of. But, you know, he was a very, very clever manager. He knew that if the team weren't doing very well at half-time, he wouldn't walk into the dressing room. He'd stay outside. He'd let the players argue, maybe having a bit of handbags, pushing and shoving with each other. But very, very quickly, you knew, a couple of minutes, Arsene Wenger would walk in, all the players sat down and were quiet. And then tactically, he would talk to you individually and collectively as a team, as how he wanted you to improve on that second half performance, to not only come back maybe and get a draw, but also he always talked about winning the game. And I think, you know, with the way that he conducted himself, he got the respect of the players. But I think the biggest thing for me was, you know, when you first went out to training, we used to train at 10:30. He was out there at 10:15, and if anybody was late, he just used to turn around and say, why are you disrespecting the rest of the players? It was not about him, it was about the team.
Wow, big stuff. And look, we need to talk about, obviously, your time, obviously, as a left-back, but there's quite a few now that we've got going on at Arsenal, right? The left-back situation at Arsenal right now is, it's an abundance of it. We've got Tierney there, obviously. We've got Zinni, who can play there, and now we saw, you know, Timber playing in that left back role. What are you making of? I mean, the buzzword last year was inverted. Could you have seen yourself as an inverted?
I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's the fullback role from when I joined this football club has completely changed. I think a similar fullback to out of all the players that we've got here, who plays a similar role to what I would play, which would be a defensive role. How good are you defensively, and then what can you give going forward would probably be Tierney. But if you want someone when you've got a lot of possession of the football, then you play Zinchenko, because that guy's touch, vision, in the centre of mid. I never even knew where the centre of midfield was. It was an area I just looked at.
Yeah.
You know, he goes into that midfield area, and it was almost at times that occasionally you'd see, you know, if it broke down, you'd have Xhaka in behind him, or one of the centre halves was moving out into that area. So I think for Zinchenko, he controlled that play from that central area. It's absolutely incredible. And obviously with Timber, he's just come to the football club, but boy, oh boy, he looks full of energy. He looks quite aggressive as well. Very, very accomplished on the ball. And probably could play centre forward as well.
Probably could. Yeah, exactly. I feel like the players that we have brought in are pretty versatile as it is. Now, Nigel, your involvement with the club, obviously you say that since you retired, you've been here since this stadium opened, and constantly working alongside the club. What made you want to make sure that this is your home forever, and what exactly is it that you're doing right now? Obviously, we see you on the stadium tours, also we see you're part of Arsenal Player as well.
Well, as I said to you earlier, when you have been at a football club that takes you in and you give as much as you can back, and I've always said, I can't always give you quality, but I can give you 100%.
Love it. Love it.
And I go back to, and it's different now. I go back to Highbury when we had our end of season parties, and you've got players and every single staff member together. Didn't matter where they worked at the football club, they were there. We had some sensational times together. This club draws you in, and it gives you energy and it gives you belief. I've been coming back here waiting for a Premier League title, and I'm going to keep coming back. Yeah, I do co-commentary for the first team and the under-21s. You've said it, I did some tours, corporate hospitality. If you want me to mow the pitch, I mow the pitch.
I love it. Obviously, so many of the fans appreciate it, but also, do you think there's a real importance of more ex-pros being able to attach themselves to the club?
Well, we've obviously got a lot that come back, and not full-time, but obviously I'm not full-time, I'm self-employed, but when I say, they come back to the club on a regular basis, I think, as I said to you before, it doesn't need me to tell all you supporters here today that there is a love affair with Arsenal, that even if you want to get away from, you can't. And you listen to all the players. I remember when Thierry Henry first joined, and he said very, very quickly, I soon realised what Arsenal Football Club meant to the English players, and I knew I had to fit in. And those guys want to come back. They want this team now, because we're talking about this moment in time. My time's gone. We've got those memories. They'll be there forever. But now is what we want from this team. We want, if we can, for them to deliver a Premier League title for us. And that's why the ex-players keep coming back.
I love it. Nigel Winterburn, everyone. Thank you so much, Simon.